All right.
Roll.
Hey.
Sweet, let's do it. Hey,
What's up, bro?
what's going on with it?
What's going on, man? I've been waiting for this game.
Always. It's always a pleasure, man, because
It's always a pleasure.
you never know what's going to take place.
Word. When was the first time you played Bones?
Ooh. Had to be sometime when I was a kid. When I say kid, like definitely under the age of 12. We had my mom's oldest living brother at the time, Uncle Leon. My mom's from Vallejo, and he had a game room in his house. And he was a Niners fan, no knock on that, but the whole game room was decked out, Niners stuff, Giants gear, and all the brothers, there was 7 girls, 6 boys, they would all be playing dominoes. You would just sit there and just watch, just be not really understanding what's going on, but wanting to participate. Mm-hmm. And just, when you're a kid, you're around the uncles, participating and just watching.
Yeah.
And going to go get something. Go give me this, go give me that.
Yeah.
And you do whatever just so you can just stay at the table and watch. But from there, started playing with my cousins and, with the friends and the family. Then we used to play in school. When I was notorious for that in high school during lunch. Like, let's play, let's bust out the dominoes.
Word.
Let's get them going.
Word. Were you following the strategy when you were watching as a kid, or was it?
Not really, not as a kid, because I think there's so much going on. Mm-hmm. You think from a very simple sort of place, you gotta match the numbers. Mm-hmm. And okay, something weird just happened, but not really understanding what took place. Then as you get older and you learn how to count dominoes, and then you start talking to your opponent or your opponents, and you realize that just the strategy just comes in so many ways.
Yeah.
And really, for me, I feel like the strength is being able to somewhat know what's in your opponent's hand, mm-hmm. and being able to figure out what their next move is. Yeah. And clearly, at this point, I see we just doing the same thing.
Are we doing the same thing?
I think we're doing the same thing.
Are we? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what type of player would you describe yourself as? Were you the trash talker while you're playing, or are you just assessing the table, seeing what people are doing, and then just trying to calculate how you're going to play against them, or were you trying to get in their head at the same time?
It really depends. I think like anything else, obviously, my background's in basketball, mm-hmm. in terms of my formative years and playing high school, college, professionally, and I was never on the court talker. Yeah. If you get me going, I could talk with the best of them, but I don't find any value in trying to, poke the bear. Yeah. Right. But I'm also one of the people who's like, I consider myself to be the bear, so please poke me, please talk, and all right, let's go. Yeah, okay, cool, got you. Word.
Speaking of poking the bear, as an athlete, is there a notable moment where someone poked the bear and you just had to show them what was what on the court? Is there a moment in time where that stands out for you?
I think that always happened, and I think I actually respect that. Like, I respect anyone that I would say respectfully challenges you. Mm-hmm. I'm playing basketball. I'm not looking to get into a physical altercation just from playing basketball. I think if you ask some of my teammates that I play with at Stanford, they'll speak to a lot of moments where they felt like, oh wow, he went off the rail right there. But I think it happens. When you're competitive and you want to win, like, you're liable to sometimes do or say anything.
Yeah. It's funny. I guess my question around that, being that you went to Stanford, and I think just the reputation of being the intellectual athlete at an institution like that, are there the trash talkers on campus? Are there folks like that? I mean, we've seen people like Richard Sherman over the last few years, but like, Was that the type of character that some folks had on the team?
When I played, there was not so much. I mean, we were all, I would say, just like a really, just a loving sort of joking group of guys. I think in that though, it didn't take much for anyone, and I think when you have two people competing for the same spot, to get to a point where, if you're going against, the A team is going against the B team, and you got two players that they're competing for minutes in real life. Yeah, it gets competitive, and they start talking, and I think the coaches like that. They like seeing that.
Yeah.
I think the knock we as Stanford players always got was like exactly what you said. Oh, they're just nice guys. You can get into them and you could talk to them and they're not going to respond. That's not necessarily the case. And I think people see the Stanford label on a jersey and want to profile you, right? Or they see it on your resume and they want to profile you. And obviously they see it in your resume, that's in a good way. But in sports and you coming across, you want what was then the Pac-10, they would think like, oh, you're soft. Unless they actually knew you back from the AAU days, and that's something different.
Right.
But for the most part, I feel like we got a lot of respect. There's definitely times when we played like Big 10 or Big 12 schools, and they tried to punk us off the gate.
Yeah.
And sometimes for some people on our team, they got punked.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just the reality of it.
Yeah. How much, being a kid that grew up in the Bay Area and grew up in the East Bay, like how much of your upbringing and like growing up in this environment, I think, how did you think it influenced you as an athlete?
It influenced me a lot. I think it also influenced me as a person, right? It's being from Berkeley, I don't think we have a reputation as being like, an athlete producing city or town, right? Oakland has that. You see a lot of stars, especially, whether it was like Jason Kidd, from Oakland, and you have football players and so on and so forth. I think we get looked over, but I think we also get celebrated and praised for other things. And I think for me personally, it was just that holistic, well-rounded experience where, okay, I had the fortune of growing up in Berkeley and playing basketball and going to school there, Berkeley schools, public schools. But then I also think that being able to walk a few blocks and get over to Bushrod and get exposure to what was happening there and the teams, the running Rebels that was there and the coaches, it was like, oh, okay, I see the difference, right? And it wasn't like it was a stark difference, and then that expands to going over to East Oakland and playing against folks in Richmond, and then you see, okay, we have our own sort of vibe, and then when we all get together and become the soldiers, and we go out there, it was just a great experience.
No, man, I believe that too. I think for me, growing up playing sports, that was my first introduction to different walks of life, because you had kids from the suburbs, you had kids from other parts of the city, and that was one of the only real opportunities where we would be exposed to one another.
Yeah.
And so along with the competitive nature that comes with sports, you were able, like you said, you get a well-rounded experience in terms of learning about other people that prepares you for a life where you potentially go to college, campus.
It's on me, right?
It's on you.
Yep.
Domino. All right. Woo. All right. But yeah.
That might be a game right there.
Not a game yet. So we got 10, 22.
Who's that for? This one?
25, yep, and 30. So I'm at.
Okay, we're playing two-person domino.
Yeah, so, I mean, growing up and as an athlete, or who are some of the influences in your life that kind of helped shape you as an athlete?
I would say, being from California during that time in the 80s, automatically it's Magic Johnson,
Okay.
right? Family was a Lakers fan, and you know, seeing here's this big guy bringing the ball up court, Showtime, and all that, like super influenced by that. And then right behind that, it was my brother who was an athlete, baseball, basketball, and so who's 13 years older. So seeing this very much like an adult figure, and have seen him go through his routine, going to his games, and that immediate exposure, I think really set me up for wanting to go and play sports.
Word. And you bring up Magic Johnson, and so knowing you, because I know you, and you know you've had a successful athletic career, and you've moved into a space where you have a profession now where you're focusing on real estate development. Was Magic Johnson influential in that part of your life as well, in terms of like the things that he was doing on and off the court?
Actually, no. And it's kind of interesting. It's like you saw what Magic was doing, and you certainly respect that. We'll follow that.
Okay.
Finally on the board.
On the board. Welcome to the game.
Yeah. And you see what he's doing in communities, and not just in communities, but communities of color, right? Putting the Starbucks, Magic Johnson Theater.
Yep.
And you see that happening, and you're able to appreciate it, but you see it as, because I'm not in that sector, like it doesn't immediately, resonate in terms of, okay, let me follow and sort of understand his strategy and what he's doing. Then once you get into yourself, everything changes.
Yeah.
And you become very much interested in what everyone is doing, all the moves that people are making. And with that, you get very competitive in terms of, okay, I saw Magic do it. I saw this person do it.
Yeah.
All right, who else is doing it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get in there. Let me get in the race. And let me, in a very friendly way, let me try to compete with what they've been able to do and accomplish. And for me, that's sort of the lens that I operate now in terms of how can I sort of mimic or replicate that same sort of energy I have from playing basketball, is just trying to say, okay, this is the top player out there, this is the person that's doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, what do I need to work on in terms of my game to have my name, in the same sentence as theirs, and eventually they're not talking about them, they're talking about me.
Yeah, so you're doing some level of a scouting report.
You have to. If you're not doing that, then I don't think you're taking your craft seriously.
I can respect that. I could definitely respect that. Yeah, in doing this project, I'm definitely paying attention to what the players are who are doing similar things in the podcasting, interviewing space, and trying to understand what are the best practices that they implement so that I can refine my game so that I am competing with them, because I see myself as a top dog.
For sure. And you have to, I think there's nothing wrong with that. If you really believe in what your skill set is and what you're able to do and how you're able to do it, and then you couple that with the network and other resources, I think that's very, very appropriate in terms of how you get out there and sort of build your brand, build your business, and create benchmarks so you are able to keep score.
Yeah. So basketball was the first space where you exercised that skill set.
Yeah.
What was the next thing that you were able to apply that?
For me, so when I finished playing basketball, I was about 28 years old and was fortunate and that was, back when we were coming out of the great financial crisis and trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do, and what that looked like, and moved into the nonprofit sector. I knew that's not where I wanted to be long term, but very much a launching pad. And with that, I got, was able to really develop some just soft skills and more than anything, build a resume. But in that, and sort of kind of just looking around and seeing sort of who my peers were, and I kind of marked my peers, people who were in my age group. Now, granted, I was very fortunate to go play basketball after college.
Yeah.
I didn't go to graduate school. And so there was definitely, the comparison wasn't, apples to apples.
Right.
But I didn't use that as an excuse. And for me, I kind of looked at the other folks who were in the field, and I was like, okay, interesting. You guys are the future.
Yeah.
And there was folks in there that I certainly felt like I could not only do what they were doing, if I applied myself and certainly putting in the work, but also thought that I could do it better. Right? And no disrespect to them,
No.
but I felt like me as a whole package and what I bring to the table was a lot more than some of these folks. And, but again, in the nonprofit space, that was, for me, short term. It was the launching pad,
Yeah.
right? And I think that early experience really helped me in getting some soft skills and also just kind of humbled myself. Was very humbling in terms of getting introduced to, on the ground level, what are people talking about? What are the issues?
Yeah.
And also, how is it or is it not being addressed?
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was all of those things in the learning experience, and really also knowing that that's not a space where you can really be competitive. You can't go in there and throw an elbow.
Right.
You can't talk shit to the next person. And I mean, that's just not.
The nonprofit space is one where it's seen as very collaborative,
For sure.
non-competitive.
For sure.
It's supposed to be, I don't want to call it kumbaya, but it has a very.
It has elements of that.
It has its elements,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's a non-competitive arena for a lot of.
And I think with that, or because of that, I think my time in there was like very much, I wouldn't say unfulfilling, but it wasn't, I don't think I was able to sort of use all the tools in my toolbox and every day feel as though I was really stretching myself or facing challenges and where I was like, man, it's either all in or nothing, right? And which is sort of the energy that I love playing basketball. You just know, it's like you leave it all on the court or you go home.
Yeah. You said something that stood out to me. You said you were able to get on the ground floor and, good play, see how things were either being addressed or not addressed. And I wonder, your time in the nonprofit space, was that an insight where you were like, oh, maybe this could be a launching pad for my entrepreneurial pursuits because of the limitations that the nonprofit space had?
I would say yes. And there's certainly limitations just in terms of, I think the strategy in nonprofit is very different than it is in the private sector, right? I think in the private sector, there's this strike first mentality, which is sort of crucial, right? Because if you're not the first or the second, it's too late, right? And more times than not, the moment has passed.
Right.
And so with seeing sort of the things that I cared about on a personal level and things that mattered to me, and recognizing, well, it's going to take 50 years for a nonprofit to fix this if they can do it. How can I apply, how can I take a more accelerated approach to sort of just expedite this and make things happen in a way in which is perhaps addressing it in a manner that the nonprofit space can't do it. And for me, that was certainly housing. Like looking at housing, looking at really understanding what real estate means to really the wealth of not just this country, but the world. Real estate is a huge driver of wealth and wealth creation. And, historically, Black people and others have been locked out of that opportunity. Like we were denied, locked out. There was systems put in place by the federal government and cities and people to prevent us from getting what is, for Black folks and people and most people of color, our greatest sort of resource in terms of wealth. You look at our portfolio, most times than not, it is the greatest or the largest asset within our portfolio.
Yeah.
That's not always the case for white folks who have, they have their, mutual funds and stocks and bonds and everything else, and there's a small little sliver that might just be their house. Right. And for us, you see how that's used. Being leveraged for education, or sometimes, bail money, or whatever, legal fees. But one time, it was that house, that piece of real estate that creates that leverage.
No, I can see that. And I wonder about you finding an interest in the housing sector and real estate sector. Was that a personal interest of yours, or was that actually work that you were looking at in the nonprofit world and then decided I can pivot into this on the private side?
I was looking at it in the nonprofit space, meaning I was in the nonprofit space.
Or 5. Thank you.
Yeah, pretty lucky there, my friend.
I'll give you, I go 5, and I give you your 5.
All right, sweet.
Good play.
So I was in the nonprofit space, and being here in Oakland, you can't ignore what was happening in terms of housing.
Yeah.
Right? And there was, I think during that time period, the big sort of issue that people were probably trying to solve for was the lack of job opportunities or the pipeline into tech. And while that was an issue, I don't feel like that was sort of the more, I would say the larger issue that we were facing in this community, right? And that was much of the conversation, but I think in terms of housing and also the access in Black ownership, Black and brown ownership through Oakland in terms of actual owning physical real estate. That wasn't with our businesses, and not only just personal. That wasn't really a conversation that was happening. And I tried to push that. It was like, hey, why aren't we talking about this more? And sometimes you have to recognize that's just not a focus of where you're working or what their priorities may be.
Right.
Now that doesn't mean you can't on your own look to go out there and do something about it. And I think for me, that was my approach. Well, if these folks aren't interested in solving for it, and I see the issue and I really believe in it, and I believe in myself, then why not?
Yeah.
And I think that's really what came down for me. It was, I think, believing more in myself than what other people were saying in terms of how they saw what the issue was, right? So believe what I'm saying and believing in myself. And then it's like, okay, well, that's cool. Like, we can have 2 different visions and 2 different strategies to address what we see the problem to be. And I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah. So there was the point where you made that observation and then you affirmed it for yourself. What was next? What were the steps taken after that?
It was getting,
I'm gonna take 5.
Yeah. I mean, really starting a company, which I had never done.
You had never done that before?
Never started a company before, never have, really just gone out and said ambitiously, I'm gonna start this from the ground up.
And it was you by yourself?
Me and my co-founder, Josh Childress, who was my teammate and roommate at Stanford. I affectionately call him my little brother. Hosted him on his recruiting trip. And, he was wrapping up his basketball career and he was getting hit with just a lot of different investments, and a lot of them he would throw to me, and I would kind of review them and just give my thoughts on them. And it got to that point where it's just like, why aren't we just doing something together, right?
So clean.
Like
Yep.
we think in a similar fashion. We know each other inside and out. We've already went through the growing pains. You know, when you play together, we played the same side of the court, so we had to share the ball.
Yeah.
Right? And we made it through that while, you know, throwing punches at each other.
Yeah.
We were roommates, survived that. And so that was like sort of a natural progression on our part in terms of what we could seriously do.
Right.
And what he didn't tell me was, yeah, let's do that, but I'm gonna go play 3 more months in Japan.
So you had to do the legwork.
Which I was happy to do because I think I needed to really stretch myself in terms of, okay, well, you need to learn this. You know, you need to become comfortable in getting something off on the ground, making decisions, doing the fouling, being responsive, and operating at a way in which you never had to if you're gonna be serious. And really make this a career. And we were able to do that, and it was, I think you learn very fast just how hard entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
In terms of the time commitment, the energy, being able to stretch yourself in ways that make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I never had that when I was in the nonprofit sector. I never once felt uncomfortable. You know, I think sometimes I felt too comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Where this is just like, it's not really a challenge.
Yeah.
It's like I look for a challenge in life. And starting LandSpire and what we sought out to do, and this was right during the time the Opportunity Zone legislation came about, and when we were just like, man, if there was ever a time to jump in the race, it would be right now.
Yeah.
Because everyone, for the most part, is starting, we're all at the same start line.
Yeah. No, and I can attest to the fact that you dedicated yourself to this. The road in the year that I've known you, the back and forth that you commit yourself to in order to execute the vision is remarkable, and it's not easy.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And I think what you said about starting a business when your business partner is still committed to his other career.
Yeah.
It sounds, the analogy for me is that you have to get back in the gym and do the work in order to run this business.
Very, very much so. And I think I think some people think or are kind of surprised about, where did this come from? Or there was like some shock. When was it? And they don't know. Like Josh and I, we started this 2018.
Okay.
He was still playing. I was still working. Continued working, while starting this. So, during the day I had, my regular job, and then, at some point, some parts during that day, I would be doing that, and early in the morning, in the evening, was focused on LandSpire and building that, and there was, it was very much like getting back in the gym. It was very much like 2-a-days during the off season, and almost like 3-a-days, right? Where you're just like 3-a-day. That's that European basketball. 3-a-days.
You wake up.
Yeah. You wake
take
up.
a lunch.
Shoot. But it was very much like that, and there was times where you just felt like, man, I really hope this cracks.
Yeah.
Because you spend so much time, you're so involved, you're not spending time with your family, you're not getting a chance to hang out with your friends, you kind of don't know what's going on in the outside world. And I remember my dad, he was just kind of straight up, like he is. He was just like, He's like, yeah, this sounds good, but when y'all gonna get a paycheck? like when's the money gonna come in?
Word.
And I could just tell him, I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I look back at now and like where we are now, and obviously we have this incredible partnership with TPG. We have over the past year, and that's a whole nother thing. I think people don't realize that we were the only folks out there bold enough to go during the pandemic and say, we're gonna raise a fund. Yeah. And just while the world was shutting down, we were like, nah, we're gonna open up.
Yeah, and y'all had some notable wins.
Yeah.
Y'all had some notable wins.
Some incredible projects that we were able to put in our pipeline. Things that I think most people would certainly, it would take them a lot more than 2 years to get access to the type of deals that we were doing. Yeah. Historically, I mean, we bringing Black ownership to acquiring and being part of the acquisition group for the Newport Beach Marriott. Yeah. Right. I mean, that is historic. Yeah. Right. An off-market transaction that we were a part of.
Yeah, and two individuals who took a non-linear path to get there.
Absolutely.
It's remarkable.
Absolutely. There's people who leave college and this is their path. They go into college wanting to do this. And here we are in our 30s and we say, you know what? We're going to quit our jobs, what we're doing, what we've been successful at doing, and do a career pivot and get into this space that we have absolutely no experience in. Yeah. And if I'm someone on the other side of that who's been there, I'm kind of like laughing, like good luck. Yeah. Right. But I think that's what makes Josh and I so special is that we lean into those type of challenges. Yeah. And we take it very seriously when we set out and say like, we're gonna go do this. And we have that mentality that, you know what, it's fine if you say no, cool. But we're gonna find a way. Yeah. We'll find a way. Yeah. It's all good.
That definitely resonates with me because I'm not on that other side yet, but that is the goal. And I think for a lot of people in this room right now, that is the goal, is to be able to be fully immersed in the profession that we are pursuing. But we have to maintain and balance our 9-to-5s because of various priorities. Yeah. It varies in degree for every person. Yeah. But seeing you able to do it and be in your personal circle of people and witness that, it validated for me that it's possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a little disheartening when I think people who have goals, ambitious goals, and they listen to that one no. Mm-hmm. For someone that's like, higher up, more experienced, and they tell them, oh, well, you don't have any experience. Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't recommend. And then they're just off of it. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, I didn't have any, idiot telling me that. Yeah. Right?
You never experienced anyone saying no or some level of...
So I had, when I was applying to business school, mm-hmm. There was only one school I wanted to go to, Stanford. Yeah. Right? I wanted, for many reasons. Well, one, I wanted to go back to school for the simple fact that it was important to me to challenge myself in the academic space without having basketball as a priority. Mm-hmm. Right? What would have my academic experience been without basketball? Yep. So that was one. Two, I knew I needed that on my resume in terms of whatever I do next, and I knew I was gonna do something bigger than what I was doing, that having not just Stanford, but just having a business degree mm-hmm. was gonna help open doors and demonstrate on paper that I'm qualified. Mm-hmm. Right? As ridiculous as that sounds. Yeah.
But it's the reality that
it's the reality. Yeah. And three, it was, if I were to ever have a conversation with someone and say, you know what, I think you should do X, Y, and Z. I'm definitely not gonna tell someone to do something that I didn't do myself, right?
Real. No.
And be able to explain to them the value in that.
There's a lot of backseat coaches out there.
Right, right. So that was very important to me. And then obviously Stanford, because I had gone there for undergrad, and also knew the value of the Stanford network. I wasn't interested in any other school. Now, I had someone, or two people,
No
say to
names
me,
are needed.
Yeah, we're not gonna say names.
Yeah.
Say, well, you should do this program. You should do MLT, and you should apply to Cal. And I was like, I'm not interested in MLT. I'm not interested in Cal. Like, why the hell would I do that?
Yeah.
And I remember having the conversation, letting them know that it's kind of funny, where I was just like, oh yeah, I think I told them I got accepted to Stanford, and then they asked me, and they were like, you didn't apply to Cal? And I'm like, you wanted me to apply to Cal. And
you had a very clear vision of what you wanted to execute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so for me, I look back and I think of, LandSpire where we are. The story's not the same in terms of Josh calling me and I'm in my dorm, right? I was living on campus, which was wild. Living in my dorm, sitting there talking, and we're talking about, man, yeah, dude, why aren't we doing something together? Mm-hmm. Right back where it all started for us, the genesis for us. I don't think it would happen if I go somewhere else. Like it's all part of the story, and a special part of the story. And so again, going with what it is that you want and how you see your story, your story playing out for yourself, and how you want it to play out for yourself. So yeah, that was like the one time I was like, they were like, and you should do this, and I'm like, you know what, you're an idiot. I'm not listening to you.
I love that because you trusted your intuition.
Yes. And it's self-awareness is huge, man. Mm-hmm. Like I've learned that a lot over the past, 3 years. Being self-aware is key, and it's also key in business, right? Yeah. One of the greatest compliments I think we got early on was someone was just like, you know what, I like you guys. You don't bullshit. You don't act like you know something when you don't. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, for what? Like I'm here trying to build relationships. I'm here also trying to, ask for your money. Like the last thing I want to do is come across as someone that is unsavory or is full of shit. Yeah.
That soft skills kicked in. That humility kicked in.
Absolutely. And I think one thing I think we all know from playing sports, at some point you will get humbled. Yeah. I don't know a player at any level who has achieved any sort of greatness who hasn't been humbled at some point in their career. Yeah. If folks really want someone, you want an inspiring story, or you want someone to be like, man, like, I feel like I've been just every path or every way, there's just been a roadblock, or I've been denied, or Carmelo Anthony. Yeah. Like if there is just like a story that needs to be told, like his greatness and what he's endured, and I say that as someone that got to know him very young coming out of Syracuse, as we shared the same agent, and it's just like, that's very inspirational. Yeah. Of knowing it's just like when everyone's telling you no, and you really believe, and you bet on yourself, you will find a way to come back and have success. Yeah, and you're right. What he's endured over the last 17 years of his career is hard when you're at the top of the food chain, and then younger players come in and you're not as favorable on the team, and you become a journeyman. For sure.
That's humbling.
Well, and that's what it's just like. That's kind of exciting about this and the work that we're doing is, there are a few Black developers who've been able to do it at a high level. Yeah. They're on their way out. Yeah. And we see ourselves as the new crop, new generation. And there's other folks out there, besides Josh and myself. that are out there doing it. And I think there's a lot of opportunity out there for us all.
Yeah.
You know, to come in there and be that next wave. And also just be, you know, where it makes sense, be collaborative.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's nothing better than finding people that you can work well with.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate to build some strong relationships and work with some good folks who make the job not feel like work.
Yeah.
You know, you genuinely get excited to go into a meeting and see the other folks and talk to them, and you ask them how they're doing, how their family is doing, and you know, it brings a different energy to what needs to get done.
Yeah.
Is it on you?
It's on you.
It's on me.
Yeah, it's on you.
All right.
And yeah, it's interesting, like that there are groups out there that have been in the space that are Black folks that are providing they're providing wealth to be able to have real estate ownership. How have you been able to build relationships with them and start to kind of, as you say, be collaborative, like creating the pathway for that handing down of the game,
I think,
so to speak.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really leaned into.
I'm gonna take 5.
I would say after once LandSpire started, and I was just recognized this, like, you know, this is my deal, this is my jam. Being okay with just who I am.
Yeah.
Right. I was just like, I just want to be myself. It's like nothing more, nothing less, and I want to show up as myself, my authentic self, every day. And if I can't do that, then I don't want to do this. And the relationships that I've been able to build, the strength of them has been, I believe, because I show up with who I really am. Like you don't have to remember how to show up, you know, when you're trying to show up as your representative.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like, no, I am who I am, and that's not for everybody.
Yeah. And it's
right?
it's hard not to forget two like 6'10" dudes that walk into a meeting.
Yeah. And it's very much the same for Josh and who he is as a person. And I think us together, that we're very complimentary of each other in terms of how we show up, and he's a little bit more reserved. I'm probably a little bit louder, and that works.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when we go into rooms and we're in the meetings and like having that dynamic, you know, it's just like playing like 2-on-2 with someone. It's like, oh, we've been through this. Like we know how to read each other. We know how to sort of play to our audience, right? To the situation we're facing. So that's been, I think, I really appreciate that, not feeling as though that I have to play up to or play down to the person that I'm sitting across. Like, in fact, I'm no longer interested in making someone else feel comfortable. Making someone else feel confident, right? Because I'm bigger and blacker than they are. It's like, I'm not interested in that. Like your fragility and insecurities are something that you need to deal with on your own. And so we've been able to build relationships with folks who are very confident in who they are and how they show up, and they see us, and there is no posturing involved. You know, and that's been extremely, I think, it's just extremely rewarding on a personal level, knowing that you can be in the same space with someone who considers themselves to be, you know, a beast in their respective domain, and see another beast and be like, I like
I like
what you
that.
do. Yeah, yeah, I like
Sounds
that.
like the form of a healthy relationship.
Yeah, and we're doing great things, and it all works out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is really, really fascinating. As someone that continues to challenge himself, what is it that you're working on now, personally?
Self-care.
Okay.
Self-care. I think I've done.
Domino.
That's exactly what I needed. That's exactly that's what I needed.
So self-care?
Self-care. I think I've done a horrible job of just self-care over the past few years.
Yeah. What does that look like? Because it's funny, you bring up self-care, and in a previous conversation that I had, self-care was another challenge for that individual as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think starting with sleep.
Okay.
I have one of those minds that it likes to turn on in the middle of the night. And I can find myself easily exploring a new idea at 3, 4 in the morning as if it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah. And you act on it.
You definitely want to act on it because you don't want to lose that momentum, that energy.
Yeah.
I think also with that is, you're trying to run a company.
Want to try them to teach?
Please. And with that, there's anxiety, right? That something is not going to go right, and there's when you're writing a project and there's capital calls, and that hey, like we're trying to raise money and this and that, and if I get one more no, I'm gonna just pull all my hair out.
Yeah.
Like all those things, it keeps you up, and so really just being more mindful of my sleep. I would say I never had a problem going to the gym. I love the gym. That's my outlet.
Yeah.
And so definitely, physical exercise, but also I would say taking time to turn off, right? Where you just say like, hey, I am gonna turn off from the outside world. I'm not gonna be responsive to every question, whether it's from my family or my friends, every text.
Yeah.
Eliminating FOMO, right? Just because someone is doing something or having something, you don't need to be there. And really just taking that time to have a conversation or having time with yourself,
Yeah.
right? And getting out. And this was very on in the pandemic. I found myself going on drives or walks. I was doing a lot of walking and just unplug, not listening to music, being aware of what my surroundings and the sounds that I was hearing. And that certainly allowed me to think more clearly. It allowed me to sort of reset a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you kind of like you want to factor in like, your diet and everything else. Drinking, even though we're having a couple drinks right now.
Yeah.
Something new that I started, I was just like, I'm not gonna drink during the week. Like no drinks during the week.
Cool.
So that's something new I'm practicing. But yeah, it's self-care. I've really leaned into that. I think the next step for me is therapist, really.
Yeah.
And just
Like individual therapy?
yeah, again, individual therapy and being able to really talk to someone about my personal experiences. Going back to I was very young and things that I've hold on to, relationships that are fractured and need repair, and just some of that toxic energy that I'm just still holding on to.
Yeah. I think you know this, and I've shared this before. I've been doing individual therapy for the last couple
It's
of
on me,
years.
right?
Yeah, it's on you. And it's been great to be able to have that space to be able to work through things.
Absolutely.
I have been able to take the therapy and in that work, transition in the work that I've been doing with this particular person. We now have an executive coaching arrangement. So I see how that work transforms into the type of leadership that I want to cultivate now, and having somebody that understands my story now is we're able to work in a different capacity with one another. So
Yeah,
I mean,
that's dope.
I think it's great that you're thinking about that.
Yeah, it was like my mom, moms are amazing because they are like 100 all the time. Well, at least my mom is. And she told me the other day, like, we were just having like a simple conversation, and she was just like, see, there you go. I was like, what you mean, there I go? She said, that you got that Davis rage.
Which was probably useful for being on the basketball court at times.
Right, and when, it's funny you say that because for so long, basketball was my outlet. Basketball was my therapy. And like there would be moments where I would have these sort of, whether they were like celebratory outbursts, but it felt so good because it was such a strong release.
Yeah.
And your endorphins would be going, and you let out this, this yell or whatever, or just even, getting contact on the court. Like, it just felt so good.
Yeah.
And, you can't be running through the office doing chest bumps and everything else.
Or you could have joined an adult league.
I'll probably get kicked out.
I think the 6 was the spinner.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My bad.
That's all good.
Yeah, you know what I got.
Yeah, and
You threw me off.
oh man, see,
I tried to slip
it's my good conversation.
But
All
there
right.
we go.
Okay.
Nothing lost, but some gained. You agree with that?
Oh yeah, let me get you on that. My bad. So you talked self-care. Has there been a moment in your current chapter of your profession where you've had a moment where you're like, okay, these things need to become a priority because you're doing all that you're doing with running the business? Has there been a moment where you're like, oh man, I have to prioritize this?
Yeah. That was again going back to the sleep, like really, really challenging myself to go to bed early. Like it was, I used to be a 10:30 guy.
Oh really?
Yeah. So, when the Real World first came out, it was like they used to come on at 10. Then like I watched that. So in high school, then 10:30, lights off, go to sleep. Might try to sneak on the phone for a little bit. But also remember just shutting everything off at 10:30, and like I don't have a TV in my room, and that's something else that actually got cut out. It's like I don't really watch TV.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm gonna watch a game, but other than that, like I'm not really watching TV. Yeah. So at 10:30, like all devices are pretty much off, right? And it allows me to think. I think the challenge I'm probably still having in that transition is emailing from bed.
Yeah.
So now my work around that is I keep a notepad by my bed.
Nice.
And so as a thought comes into my head, I could just write it down.
So it's like a form of journaling.
Yeah. Very loose form.
Very loose
form. Yeah, so I just write a little note,
Yeah.
And just kind of what the to-do is, and then try to go back to sleep.
No, I like that. I think that's something I can see myself needing to work on. I keep my phone by my bed, and it's probably the first thing I do is check my phone when I get up. So
Yeah.
wanting to not be so dependent on
that. What are you checking for? It's on me, right?
Yeah, it's on me.
It's on you?
It's on you. It's on you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 10.
10. All right.
Boy, I'm about to nickel and dime my way back into this.
It is an hour-long conversation too, so I think it's gonna come down to scoring as many points as possible. No, you know, I'm either checking my email, checking Instagram, things that normally people check because it's social. But
So that's like the one thing. I mean, I think you know this about me, but I'm actually not on social media.
Yeah.
And that's been like the, you know, it's a joke among friends. Hashtag no IG daily if you want to find me. But I kind of look back, it was like, wow, you know, I think there was not having social media when the peak of social media allowed me to focus my energy and time, you know, into other things, other passions. So saying to say, it's like, you might want to try to move away from that.
I think so, especially as I focus more on this business. It's being less cluttered with outside noise, and being more focused on what I'm doing. I can see that, the benefits of that. So there's the piece where you're working to be the best in the field that you're in.
Yeah.
Beyond that, what is your purpose and impact that you're trying to make?
So that's a great question. I think there's like small deliverables that I'm going after right now. I mean, obviously it's, you know, me as a co-founder, you know, CEO of LandSpire, it's building the company to be greater than or larger than what we currently are. You know, we're a team of 3. You know, we're about to get a summer intern that's going to start next week, which is great.
From Stanford?
USC.
Okay.
USC.
No shade, but
No. They have some smart kids at that school. But it's you know, how preparing us to like double, right? You know, we have some ambitious goals. You know, this time next year, you know, we plan to start the raise on a $100 million fund. So it's the groundwork, the legwork to get us to that point.
Yep.
You know, we've already taken the first steps towards that, and we're in a good position to accomplish that. Yeah. But I think there's, you know, certainly a lot of things just behind the scenes, right, that you just need to make sure are in order, right? And there's no job that has prepared me for that. No one has shown me. It's like, oh, this is how you you know, lead a you know, roll out a $100 million fund. Yeah. Right. So there's going to be some element of learning on the go. My job is to really just mitigate all of the risk. Right. My job is to make sure that we're going to sweep, you know, for all the landmines and make sure everything in house is in order. Yeah. So if we do stumble, it's just we can pick back up and keep moving. So that's like immediate for me in my position, the role I'm playing on the team. And then, you know, with that, it's being able to make sure that, and this is where our competitive nature comes in. Like we keep a list. We have a long list of everyone that said no, threw a little bit of shade, and not that we're out there performing for that, but if I said I was going to do something, I'm going to make sure that, yes, we did do that. Yeah. Like, I wasn't blowing smoke when I said, you know, we were going to go out there and have, you know, however many units in our portfolio, that we were going to tackle this market. Like, no, we actually did that. Yeah. Like, so.
I think I'm getting a holiday greeting card from LandSpire talking about we did it and y'all didn't believe. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. But and that's the thing. It's we don't. The thing I love about how we operate is we just let our work speak for itself, right?
Yeah.
You know, the same energy it would take to intentionally let someone know, like, hey, you know, you passed on us, you should have done that, is time I could spend cultivating a relationship with someone that wants to work with us long term. Yeah. And that's what we've been doing. You know, those folks that said yes early on, who believed on us simply because they liked how we presented ourselves, they loved our vision, they wanted to get behind two people who had a crazy idea to go out and build something in which they had no experience behind. We want to make sure that those guys, we like you guys.
Yeah.
We're gonna make sure you guys are okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's dope. We're coming down to the close of this. I just want to say it's been great to be able to personally, again, watch your journey.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm excited for everything that you're doing. I know that there are a lot of things that are unfolding right now for you in terms of working towards this fund, all of the development and building that you're doing. But yeah, man, I think as I walk away from this, the level of focus and the level of belief in oneself it seems to me that that's so necessary to be able to accomplish any of this.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. And I think we talked, you know, off camera about this. It's not just believing in yourself, but it's actually putting the work in.
Yeah.
Right, to support everything you're saying.
Yeah, man.
It's really getting out there in those trenches and learning the work, learning the material, and stretching yourself in ways that you don't think possible to achieve what it is that you're looking to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember the time we went and got some coffee and we're sitting in the car and I'm talking to you about this idea of having a conversation like this, and you're like, yeah, man, that sounds dope. So you got to do it. And
you gotta do it.
That was the kick in my ass that I needed to remind myself, like, it's cool to have an idea, but to go out and do it is another thing.
Absolutely. And with that is, I'm always gonna be right there to support you as you're doing it. Right?
Man.
If you say you're gonna go out there and do it, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be right there, I'm gonna rock with you, I'm gonna get behind that.
Yeah. No, and that's why it was so important for me to have you on as one of my guests, because you have been there and I recognize what you're doing. So it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. I hope next time we do this, we're gonna be sipping my tequila. Stay tuned.
Yes, and that will be tight.
Yeah.
But it's a great game, bro.
Yeah.
Salud.
Cheers.
You want to get your play in? See if you can score?
Nah, we're gonna finish this game.
You gonna finish this game?
We're gonna finish this game.
It's a wrap.